Welcome back to my channel, everyone. I'm so happy to have you back, and on today's tutorial we're going to be learning how to make a button shirt with collar and back slit. Okay, so this is a female shirt. If this is what you love to learn, stay tuned to the end of the tutorial. So I went on to fold my fabric into two, and I'm working with fabric length of 27 inches, and that is what I've measured and set aside extra 2 inches for hemming allowance. Okay, so the next thing I did is I also folded in 2 inches here for our button allowance as well. So can you see? So the next thing I'm going to do now is to measure my shoulder divided by 2. But before I do that, I'm going to get my shoulder slope. Okay, I'm going to get my shoulder slope first before imputing my shoulder measurement divided by 2. Okay, so I'll be sloping my shoulder with 1.5 inches, and I'll just go ahead and do that, connect to my shoulder slope, and I'll also be using 3 inches for my neck depth, and I'll mark on that 3 inches, and from there I'm going to slope my shoulder. So note that this fabric here is just for the front part, okay, the front piece. So I'll cut it out, and the next thing I'm going to do after cutting it out is to get another fabric, fold it into two, and it is going to be for the back part. Okay, so here is another fabric that I'm going to be working with for the back part, and I proceeded to fold it into two as well. Okay, so I'm going to bring in the front part, and I'll place it on the back part, ensuring that I have equal length and 3 inches extra for the back part. Okay, so I'll go ahead and place it. Okay, so here I have 3 inches that makes the back part longer than the front part. Can you see it? So this 3 inches is going to be for overlapping shoulder. Okay, so can you see? So the next thing I'm going to do now is to bring it up here to the shoulder line and get the same shoulder slope as I did for the front part. So now it's time to I'm going to just drag the front part back to have my 3 inches extra allowance on this shoulder line, okay, for the back. So I went on to do that. Can you see what we have? And on this part, starting line of the back, I set aside 0.5 inches and 0.7 inches, sorry, and this is going to be for the slit at the back of the dress. So I'm going to overlap these 3 inches on the front part, making it 1.5 inches on fold. Okay, then I'm going to grab my pin and I'll secure it with my pins, and I'll do that at this part as well, on this part. So I was done securing with my pin, as you can see. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to mark on the 0.75 that we set aside for slit opening for the back. Okay, so from that marking now I'm going to measure my shoulder measurement divided by 2. So note that when you are making a shirt that is free, like a button shirt, you're just going to add 1 inch to your shoulder measurement divided by 2. Okay, so I went on to also mark my chest line, and I'm going to connect with my ruler this way to get the line for our armhole curve. Okay, so I'm going to divide what I have into to get the midpoint, and I'm just going to mark on the midpoint and come in by 0.5 inches. Then I'm going to connect the curve, but before I do that, I'll measure my round bust circumference divided by 4 and I'll mark. Okay, so it's time to grab my ruler and connect the curve. Okay, so this is our front curve, and I'm just going to make another connection for the back curve. Okay, so I'll connect this part again, and can you see it? This one is be our back armhole curve, the one I'm connecting right now, and the initial first one I connected will be for the front armhole curve. Of course, you know that the front armhole and the back armhole curve are not always the same. So having done that, the next I'm going to do is to measure from my shoulder to get my waistline. Okay, and I'll mark on my waistline. So now it's time to impute our measurement. I will bring in the bust circumference divided by 4 here, measure my waist circumference divided by 4 on this waistline, and down here I'm going to measure my hip circumference divided by 4, and I'll just proceed to connect all the points together. So I'm going to be adding extra allowance of 2 inches for overlocking and ease, and I'll go ahead and mark it all the way down to the hem of my shirt. So it's time to get the neck width, and I'm going to mark 3 inches starting from the 0.75 where we mark. Okay, so now I'm going to make the same marking on the front part, and here I'm going to come down by 1.5 inches. Okay, remember we already have 1.5 inches here. Okay, so I will come down by 1.5 inches here, making it a total of 3 inches, and I will mark. Can you see where I'm marking the 1.5 inches I measured for the front neck depth? Okay, so I'm just going to pick my ruler and I'll connect into a round shape. Okay, so can you see I'm connecting it? I'm just trying to make a perfect round shape around there. So I'm going to overlap it back. I'm going to overlap the back on the front back, and I'm just going to get my pin and pin it down again. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do right now is to measure 0.5 inches here. Can you see? And I'm just going to blend the curve here like this. Okay, so this is for the back neckline curve. Can you see what I have there? So the next thing I'm going to do is to grab my scissors and cut out. So just pay attention to the way I'm cutting it out. Okay, so can you see what I have? And this 0.75 I set aside here. I'm just going to rule it straight. Okay, but before then I'm going to cut out my back armhole first. Okay, so remember the back armhole is shallow, that is why we need to cut it first. Then when we separate it, we are going to be cutting out the front armhole. So can you see what we have? And I'm just going to trace that 0.75 like I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to notch on that point to indicate that that is where our allowance for back slit starts. Okay, so I went on to do that, and I'm going to slit the back part open. Okay, so slitting the back part open is only possible, as in, or is it applies to a shirt that is going to have a back slit. Okay, so if you're not going to be adding any back slit to your shirt, please don't bother allocating any 0.75 or slitting the center back open. So here is the front part, and I'm going to cut out the front armhole line, as you can see here. Okay, so now it's time to open my 2 inches for button allowance. Can you see it? And I'm going to slit it open. Okay, do you see? So I'm going to slit it open on the center front. Okay, so after doing that, it will be time for me to measure the armhole of both the front and the back to cut our sleeve. So subtracting 1.5 inches, I'm going to measure the round armhole for the front, and I have about 11.5 inches, and I'm just going to set it aside and bring in the back part. Okay, so I will fold in that 1.5 inches that subtracted. Can you see it? And from there, I'm going to measure the back armhole. So after measuring the back armhole, I will add whatever figure I get to the front armhole. Then after adding it into 2, I will also subtract it into 2 to get my armhole line, okay, for the sleeve. So I went on to fold this fabric into 4, and that is what I'm going to be using for my sleeve. So I have my desired length and my desired width, and the next thing I'm going to do now is to come down by 4 inches here, and I'm going to connect to the upper part. Okay, so I'll go ahead and connect, making sure that I have at least 0.5 inches at the upper part, the folded part of the upper part. Okay, can you see it here? Can you see this point? You can see I have 0.5 inches extra at the top. So I'm going to measure what I have on this line and divide it into 2, get the midpoint. Okay, so from the midpoint downward, I will remeasure and also divide into 2 and mark. Okay, so from this lines I've divided, here I'll come down by 0.5 inches, here I'll go up by 0.5 inches, and at the upper part here I'll go up by 0.5 inches, which it was the reason why I set aside this 0.5 inches. So I'm going to connect, okay, ensuring that I have that beautiful shape like an armhole. Okay, so if you have another method you use or another way to get your sleeve curve, please go ahead and use that. But if you find this pattern or this way easy, please go ahead and make use of it. So I'll measure what I have on the round armhole of the sleeve, and I'll make sure it gives me what I want. So I have 11.75, and I'm just perfectly very okay with that. So it's time to measure my round bicep divided by 2. I'm going to mark on it, and I'm going to mark extra 2 inches for overlocking and for ease allowance. So after which I will connect the points together and cut out. So after cutting out, I'm going to bring in the shirt for the front part of the shirt, and it will be time for us to start joining. Okay, so I'm going to notch on the midpoint of this sleeve. Okay, I'm going to notch on this folded part of the midpoint. This makes it for me to be easy, as it makes it easy for me to align the notched part to the shoulder line of my shirt. Okay, so here is the front part of my shirt, and I'm just going to set aside 1 while we work on 1. So remember, we set aside 2 inches for button allowance. From that 2 inches, now I'm going to just fold in 0.5 and 0.25, and I will sew. After sewing it, I will divide what I have into 2 and also sew it. So I went on to do that, as you can see, and I use my hemming gum to hem it down in place. Can you see? We have 0.75, okay, which is half of what was left after we folded in 0.25. So the next thing I'm going to do is to get the back part, which I've also joined the center back part. Okay, I joined the center back part, as you can see, and I join it up to the point that is around my waist. Okay, so you can actually join it up to your waist, or you come down about 3 inches below your waistline or 2 inches below your waistline. Okay, so I went on to join the center part of the back and open iron it. Can you see it? So I'm going to bring in the front part and I'll place it right side facing right side with the back part, and I'll join the shoulder and bring it back for us to see. So I went on to join the shoulder. Can you see it? On both sides. And I'm just going to bring the armhole line together this way. Okay, and making sure that they are equal, I'm going to notch on the midpoint here at the upper part. Okay, can you see? So this is going to be our shoulder line. Okay, I'll do that on the second part as well. And once I was done doing that, it will be time for us to fix our sleeve to the main bodies. So I'm going to get my sleeve, and I went on to hem the sleeve area, that is the down part of my sleeve. Okay, I went on to hem both of them, as you can see now. Can you see? I went on to hem it with my hemming gum, and that's why it's looking very neat. So this notch part, I'm going to align it to the notch part of the main fabric, and I'm just going to sew each side. After securing with my pin, I will sew the two armhole and sleeve, sorry, and I'll bring it back for us to see. So I was done sewing the sleeve to the shirt. Can you see what we have? So it will be time for us to join the side, and instead of joining with 2 inches, I'm going to join with 1.5 inches so that I will have enough ease. I don't want it to be too fitted. Okay, since it's a vintage shirt. Okay, with button. So I'm just going to mark on my 1.5 inches, and I will go over to my machine and join it. So I was done joining, and this is what we have, as you can see. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to cut the collar. So I'll bring the neckline this way, and I'm just going to measure the round neckline. Okay, so I kind of folded it into two, divided it into two, and I'm just going to measure what I have. Okay, from the center front to the back front, I have 10 inches. So I'll set it aside and bring in the fabric we're going to be using for the collar. So I'm using same fabric, and I'm just going to fold it into two, just as our neckline was folded into two. And I'm going to mark that same 10 inches with extra 0.5 inches allowance for joining with the lining piece. Okay, so I went on to measure. Can you see? This is 10.5 inches because I need extra 0.5 inches to join with the main with the lining piece. So I'm just going to straighten this part very well, and after that we are just going to proceed with our drafting. Okay, so now I'm going to determine the wideness, or how big I want the first collar to be. So I'm measuring about 1.5 inches here. That is how I want this first collar to be, and I'm just going to connect it all the way to that 10.5 inches. Can you see? So the next thing I'm going to do is to go up by 3 inches for the upper part of the collar, and I'm just going to connect up to the point where I marked the initial one. Can you see it? So here I'll measure in 0.5 inches to achieve a curve here. Okay, so I measured 1 inch first, and after measured 0.5 inches, and I'm just going to curve it out this way. Okay, this is to achieve that curve you always see on the collar, okay, of a shirt. So I'm going to measure this one, and The next thing I'm going to do now is to ensure that I have that 10.5 inches marked there. So can you see it? I'll just blend it to the 1 inch I came in here. Can you see it? So the next thing I'm going to do is to just measure 0.25 here, and I'll blend it towards this midpoint here. Can you see it? So as not to affect the center point. And the next thing I'm going to do is to go up by 0.25 here. Okay, then on the upper part of the collar, that is this pointed part, I'm going to go up again by 0.25, and I'll blend it to the folded part. Can you see it? So now it's time for me to cut out, and after cutting out, I'm going to cut out another 2 pieces for my lining pieces. Okay, so after cutting out these 2 pieces, I'm going to add my collar gum to 1 pair. Okay, so that is one of the 2 pieces. I'll gum the collar gum to it, and I'll bring it back for us to start joining. So I went on to cut the second part, and I infused collar gum on one of the pair. Okay, so this one that has the collar gum is going to serve as my main fabric, main collar, and this one lining piece. Okay, so I'm going to pick the biggest parts, one of the lining piece and one of the main fabric, and I'm going to join the pointed part and the upper part. Okay, so I was done joining it, and this is what we have, and also close this end. So I'm going to come up by 1 inch here and here as well, and I'm just going to pick this one that I've joined and placing the starting line on that 1 inch and the other end at that 1 inch. I'll secure with my pin. After securing with my pin, I'll pick the remaining part of the lining for the collar, place it on top, right side facing right side, and I'll join. So I'll just place this right side facing right side, and I'll go ahead to sew starting from this line all the way to this other line down like this. So I went on to do that, and can you see what we have? So next thing I did was to fold in 0.5 inches here. Remember, we added 0.5 inches allowance for the hemming. Okay, so I divided into 2 to mark notch the midpoint here. Okay, it is very important so that we can align this notch part to the center back and center front and get it right. So I also notch the main collar and the lining piece. Can you see? So next I'm going to bring in my shirt, and I am going to notch the center part of my collar to the center part of my shirt, which is the back center part. Okay, the center part of the back. I will notch it this way, right side of the collar facing the wrong side of my shirt. Okay, so can you see? So the wrong side of the collar is the lining piece. Okay, so I'll go ahead and join, and this is what we have. So can you see how I sew here with 0.5 inches? So it's time to stop stitch this upper part, and that is why I went on to hem in 0.5 inches. So I'm just going to place it this way, and trust me, hemming it is the best thing to do because it makes it possible for you to just place it on top and top stitch. So I'll arrange it down and pin it down and also top stitch on it neatly, and I'll bring it back for us to see. So I went on to do that. Can you see? I top stitch neatly, as you can see. Okay, so it's time to give the hem part of my shirt a little styling. I don't want it to just be straight like that. I want to style it a bit. Okay, so here I'm going to come measure about 4 inches upwards, and I'll mark. Okay, so next I'm going to measure 0.5 inches close to the first line, and I also mark. So one is going to serve as the main line I'm going to cut, while the second is going to be the allowance for hemming. So I'll divide what I have here into to get the midpoint, and I'm going to grab my ruler and connect the line in a curvy shape. So this is what we have. I just want a little curve there, not something serious or dramatic. Okay, so I'm going to proceed to cut out, and I'll do the same thing on the second part of the fabric of the shirt, and after doing that, I will go over to my machine, hem it, and add my button, and that is what I've done. I also hem the remaining part of this back slit, and this is what we have. Thank you so much for watching. If you like to know how I made the trouser, you can check my tutorial on that. Please go ahead and subscribe if you have not done so. Like this video, share it, and also comment. Thank you so much. See you next time when I drop another beautiful tutorial like this. Bye.